Hello, and welcome to The Renaissance Report, a freelance podcast series talking with educators and experts from everywhere on the need to improve climate, culture, and morale in K 12 schools today, and how ideas from the Jostens Renaissance effort can help schools get there. Listen in as our guests discuss their experiences and ideas that have helped schools achieve goals and just become places that people want to go to, not just have to go to. It's possible, and any school can achieve it. Our guest in this episode is Dr. Darren Peppard. Darren is a former teacher, administrator, and superintendent, now retired from Wyoming, now living in Nebraska. He's not quite retired, though. First, he's a Jostens Renaissance Hall of Famer, and currently he mentors schools all over the country in improving especially adult leadership in any building and improving climate, culture, and morale everywhere. In this episode, he shares a ton of great advice and wisdom, again, especially for adult leaders, on how to make their schools just better places to be. Get ready to take some notes because you're going to get some real inspiration from Dr. Peppard in this episode. We're talking here with Dr. Darren Peppard, who is a Jostens Renaissance Hall of Famer. Oh, I should bow to royalty or something like that. Darren, first of all, welcome to the Renaissance Report podcast. We appreciate you joining us today.
Absolutely, Scott. Thanks so much for having me. And just for clarity, I think the Hall of Fame piece mostly just means you've been at it for a very long time, more than anything.
Well, let's start with that, okay? Because we have some things we're going to talk about later on, especially leadership. That's the big theme of this particular chat that we're having. But first off, let's find out about you. For folks who aren't, Renaissance pros and all that sort of thing, tell us about yourself. Tell us about your background, where you're from. I know that you were a teacher, you're an administrator, you do some pretty cool things now. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I was a public educator for 26 years, and I began as a middle school teacher. I was a high school teacher, and I was a basketball coach. I was a tennis coach. At a point in time, in fact, I was a teacher at a high school that was a Renaissance school in Kingman, Arizona. And when I moved from Arizona back to my home state of Wyoming, the big thing there, we wanted our daughter to, grow up around family, aunts and uncles and cousins and grandparents, that kind of thing. And when I returned back to my home state, I took an assistant principal position at a high school in Southwest Wyoming. And what I quickly discovered was that our culture was a little bit toxic. And we were really kind of focused on the things that people were doing wrong and not focused as much on the things that they were doing right. Our school was struggling. Our graduation rate wasn't where we wanted it to be. Our student achievement wasn't where we wanted it to be. Our attendance wasn't where we wanted it to be. And we dealt with a lot of disciplinary referrals. In fact, a very, very high number. When we're partway through the school year and we're in a staff meeting and we're talking about what we're going to do about hats and cell phones, really important things, right? And somebody asked me a question. They're like, hey, why does it always have to be about what they do wrong? Why can't it be about what they do right? And for me, it was kind of this two roads diverged, right? This was honestly where the road to awesome began. And we started having conversation as a staff about our culture and about a need to improve our culture and to shift our focus with our culture. And it took me back to, hey, you know what? When I was a high school teacher in Arizona, we had this thing called Renaissance. And I didn't know much about it. I wasn't heavily involved, but I knew that our kids who were doing the right things got the spotlight shined on them. And so we decided, hey, let's look into that. We ended up bringing Jostens Renaissance to our school. I continued in my career at that school in a different assistant principal role. Ultimately, I became the principal of that school and later became a school superintendent in Colorado. And the thing that was a common theme for me all the way through my leadership career was that Jostens Renaissance was going to be a part of what we do. That focus on building and maintaining positive culture and climate, to me as a school leader, is the number one most important thing we can do. And so being able to work alongside Jostens Renaissance and to have all of these amazing people, this amazing community of Renaissance educators helped us to start looking at things a little bit differently in our school. Instead of just looking for the things they're doing wrong, let's really do look for the things that they're doing right. And as we continued on that journey, we found that all those things we were trying to improve really did start to improve, and we start to see more and more success as a school. Take that forward a number of years, and as I was wrapping up my time in public education as a superintendent, I fell in love more and more and more with supporting schools and school leaders across the country, not only to develop positive culture and climate, obviously that's a critical element, but simply to help leaders to gain some clarity about what matters in their role, to have them walk in their purpose and to find some joy in the daily work that they get to do. And so about 3 years ago, I stepped out of public education, although honestly, Scott, I still consider myself a public educator.
Oh, yeah.
And now I work with schools and the school districts and classroom teachers all over North America, helping them build that positive culture and climate, helping their leadership teams to be effective, to be efficient, and honestly, just to pour into educators all over North America. So that's a little bit of, I guess, about me. I'm a traveler of the road to awesome, and my road just continues to help or to take me to places where I'm able to support leaders and classroom teachers and ultimately students all over the place.
Now, we're going to talk about Road to Awesome a little later on because you're doing some pretty
Sure.
cool stuff. So we're going to talk about that. Let me turn back. You used that word toxic, and
Mhm.
you and I have both been at this a long time. For me, it's been 25 years as somehow part of Justin's Renaissance and doing various things. But I keep hearing that word more and more these days: absenteeism
Yeah.
issues, behavior issues, toxicity. Our culture isn't what we want it to be. I'm hearing that more now than I think I've ever heard it before. And so there's a question as part of this series I'm asking pretty much everybody, and it's just, are kids just different today? Has the virus, the pandemic somehow just changed
Yeah.
everybody? What's going on with kids today?
Yeah.
Is it just a perception or is it really happening? This is just not good right now. What do you think?
Well, first off, I don't think it's that kids are toxic or anything like that. And have kids changed? Probably a little bit, but I think every generation is a little bit different, right? We talk about all different generations in their own unique ways, as we should, right? So have kids changed? Probably a little bit. Do we point the finger at the pandemic? We probably do, but I don't think we should. I think the reality is that we all continue to evolve and change. And certainly in our society right now, there's definitely a level of division in our society. And I think our students feel a lot of that. And maybe that does bring some unique challenges into our classrooms. But the truth is, just like has been true for a long time, as educators, we need to continue to evolve and to stay with those continuing trends and not just stay stuck in how we've always done things in the past, because we all know that's probably one of the most dangerous phrases in any walk of life that we have. And that's just simply saying, oh, well, we've always done it that way. That's just not a good way for us to continue to evolve, right? So I think that certainly, again, I think kids have changed a little bit, and certainly technology has changed. And we're certainly, I think, at this point in society at a want for better leadership and better leadership examples for our kids. And I think that has maybe a little bit to do with what we're faced with. But I think we also, at certain points in time, we have to kind of take a little pause and take a step up. I call it balcony level leadership. Just kind of take a step up on the balcony and take a look at what's happening everywhere. To simply say, oh, it's because kids have changed, isn't enough. It's collectively, are we doing what we need to do to support our kids and the needs that our kids have? Because you sit down and talk with an individual kid, they're no different than kids were in the previous generation in terms of, being able to have conversations, knowing what they need or what they want. Um, Certainly social media has helped to, brighten the spotlight maybe around some of the challenges that exist. And certainly all of us as adults changed a little bit coming out of the pandemic, right? Maybe our priorities have shifted a little bit, but if we're not collectively talking about as a school, as a community, what matters to us and how we're going to best support our kids, that's probably where the disconnect exists, much more than just simply saying, oh, well, kids have changed. Sure, maybe they have, but we probably all have a little bit.
Now, again, you right now with what you do, Road to Awesome, which we'll talk about in a bit, you travel the country, you do speaking engagements at schools,
Mhm.
talking to administrators and teachers and so on. Seemingly to me, every school has issues right now. It's like every
Yeah.
school is fighting this or dealing with this. Or am I overshooting that? Maybe some schools are doing great, but seemingly all of them could really use Renaissance related ideas, I think. What
Mhm.
do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, I think everything is different in everybody's context, right? But even the schools probably that we would say, boy, they're really, really getting it done, right? I mean, they're really crushing it. They probably still could use additional support. You're right. I do. I work with schools all over North America, and I see, unique challenges in every single one of those schools. And just earlier this week, I was at a really small district in Nevada, and the challenges that they may face, in terms of eh, disciplinary issues with high school kids, as an example, are going to be a little bit different than maybe say an inner city school in Clark County in Nevada, like, in Las Vegas. But that doesn't mean that they couldn't still benefit from finding ways to really recognize, reward, and reinforce the things that they respect in their school. Most schools right now just need to hit the reset button, as we do every year, right? When we start the school year, it's let's get really clear about what we respect. Let's get really clear about what it is that matters to us. What are we really going to be looking for? And then let's be really intentional with how we recognize, reward, and reinforce that. And that's where the Renaissance piece comes in. I mean, utilizing that Jocelyn's Renaissance formula is such a powerful way to build that culture, to ensure that every single kid and every single adult on our campuses feel like they're seen and they're heard and they're valued and they're trusted. And that's what everybody wants. No matter what, no matter, the context that you're in, no matter what challenges that our kids or adults may be facing, they all want to feel seen and heard and valued and trusted, and utilizing that Jocelyn's Renaissance formula to really drive home and let people know, this is what we care about and this is how we're going to celebrate everybody who is meeting and exceeding and or even striving toward those goals is such a great way to build culture. And I think that will help every school. And so the core of your question is everybody fighting, this big challenge. I think in their own way, everybody is trying to overcome a challenge in their school and in their district and in their community. And again, it's all context specific, but the formula itself, really leaning into respect, recognize, reward, reinforce relationships to get results, is a great way for everybody to take that on and to meet that challenge.
All right, now here's I guess, a simplistic question, and it's just, what is leadership? You deal with that a lot in the work that you do.
Mhm.
What is it? I think if I went, I don't know, Darren, if I went to 10 people and asked that question, I think I'd get 10 different answers. So what is
Right.
your response? What is leadership? Maybe more specifically when it comes to schools, what is good school
Mhm.
leadership? How would you define that, do you
Right. I think to me, being a longtime school leader, district leader, to me, first and foremost, leadership is about influence, and not in terms of mandating. but rather in gaining gaining people's trust, gaining people's belief, and then being able to utilize that influence to achieve an overall goal. I think great school leaders will do two things. Number one, they'll be really, really clear about what they care about. You know, they're the ones who can create that real compelling vision of the school. Like, here's where our school will be in a year. Here's where our school will be in 2 years. This is what it's going to look like. This is what it's going to feel like. This is what it's going to sound like at our school in a year or in 2 years, right? That's gaining that clarity. But then being able to be really intentional with the work that they do, with how they communicate, with the strategies that they leverage, those leadership moves, if you will, to gain not only the trust and the belief of everybody, but to gain the momentum from everybody, to get everybody moving in that direction. That's that influence, right? When you can get everybody to see that vision, to understand what that vision will be, and to know what their part is, what they contribute to creating that compelling vision, to me, that's leadership. That's great leadership. We're going to have days, and I really feel like leaders are going to lead from three different positions. You're going to lead from the front, you're going to lead from the middle, you're going to lead from the back. And certainly there are days as a school leader where you have to lead from the front. Those days when you're dealing with a crisis or you're dealing with a challenging situation, you've got to be out in front. Most of the time, I think great leaders are going to work from the middle, right in there, shoulder to shoulder with people. And I push with school leaders all the time the importance of being that instructional leader, being in the classrooms, providing that coaching and that support, not only to your teachers, but also to your students, right? And then there are going to be those times as a leader where we're going to lead from the back, where we're going to trust the others that are part of our team, that have taken on that belief, that see that compelling vision, and just be there to support and let them do the leading. So you ask a really loaded question here, because when we talk about leadership, there's so much I think that goes into it. But again, leadership is about influence. And if we can be really clear, we can be really intentional, and we can lead from those three different positions, and that's great school leadership right there.
All right, let me see if I can think of another loaded question. All right, here we go. Now, I've never been
Yeah.
an administrator, obviously, but I have many friends who are principals, superintendents, and that sort of thing. I think I've told all of them, I think you're crazy. Why would you want to do it? It just seems like a thankless job. At school board meetings, people hurling, insults and yelling and
Right.
fist fights and just ridiculous stuff. I've got to think every administrator out there, either listening or just out there, they've dealt with this. And you've sort of touched on it there earlier. How do you deal with this? How do you make being an administrator, especially, not a thankless job? A job that you actually look forward to going to every day. I mean, how do you do that these days? It seems
Right.
really hard.
Well, and I think that's where, as school leaders, when we stop living in firefighter world and just run from crisis to crisis, because so many school leaders, that's what they do. And when we first step into the role, we think that's what we're supposed to do, right? We throw on the cape, and we kind of, I'm Superman, here I go. I'm going to solve everybody's problems, and I'm going to be the smartest person in the room, and I'm going to be the solution to every problem. That's how many school leaders first start off. And that's when you're just simply being a firefighter. Over time, school leaders begin to learn more and more and more about the importance of that clarity that I talked about just a minute ago, right? We've got to make sure that we're really clear about what truly matters, about what's the work that only I, as the principal, can do versus work that others can do, right? If I'm going to be the instructional leader of my school, I'm the one who needs to be doing that. I need to make sure that I'm prioritizing my time so that those things happen, right? And once we start to do that, we start to find ourselves living a little bit more in leadership world and not living in firefighter world, and finding ways to make the job not a thankless job. That's the key. Stop living in firefighter world and start living in leadership world. Find ways to delegate some of those things that other people can do. Lean into the work that only you as the school administrator can do, and trust the people around you, and never forget. I don't care if you're an elementary principal, middle school principal, high school principal, or you're a superintendent, whatever your administrative role is, you get to work with kids every single day. And man, that's not a thankless job. That's an incredible opportunity. It's an incredible calling. It's an incredible way to pour into other people. I mean, Scott, you've heard me say this before. We're in the people business. I mean, our job is to take a little person and make them a better little person in a course of 9 months, right? Whether that's through third grade or middle school science or high school algebra. I mean, whatever medium you might use, it is what it is. But your job is to take a little person and make them a better little person. And as the school leader, never lose sight of that. Because if you lose sight of the fact that we're in the people business, that's when you get stuck in all the administrative, you get stuck in all the reports, and you get stuck in the negative stuff. I mean, and those things happen. You mentioned it. There are school board meetings around the country that have turned into like the Jerry Springer show, right? I mean, and nobody wants that.
No.
But that's just this tiny little microcosm of the job. It's those conversations for me, like it's sitting on the benches, in my hallways and talking with my kids and building relationships that last a lifetime. That's where the job really pours back into you. And sometimes you got to remind yourself about those great things that are happening, and that the difficult things, nobody's going to be happy about them. Nobody's going to say, "Oh, I love that part of the job." But when you take the time to take the step back and reflect, I mean, heck, I still think of myself as a recovering high school principal. I haven't been a high school principal in like 7 or 8 years, but I loved being a high school principal so much. And yep, I had days too where, it was an angry parent or a rough board meeting or something like that. But man, the rewards that come with that role, and the payoff down the road, when you have those opportunities to, have a conversation with a former student. I mean, I don't think I got to tell you this when we were together in Florida. I was speaking at a conference in Nashville, and all of a sudden I looked down, and in the third row was one of my former students from when I was a high school principal. She's in the audience listening to me. And I mean, I stopped my speech and I called her out, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe this. One of my former students is right here at this event." And we get to spend about an hour together afterwards. She's now moving into an administrative role herself, and I'm so proud of her. And at the same time, it was this incredible bucket filler for me that, years later, she's like, I'm getting ready to be a school administrator. And I kept reminding myself and thinking about, boy, what was it, what was the Pep did when this happened? And how did he handle this situation? And I wonder if I reached out, if he'd be willing to talk to me about this. And of course, right? Of course, once they're your student, they're always your student. But that's how the job isn't thankless, because there are going to be those times, whether it's short term or way down the road, when you least expect it, that one of your kids, because there'll always be your kids, says something or reaches out or shares something that makes you realize that you truly made a difference in their life, and ultimately they're making a difference in our lives too.
Yeah, it's kind of tough. Sometimes the payoff isn't immediate, as you said. It's kind of down the road a little bit.
Right.
Like with that student you're talking about. I come at this a bit from the yearbook angle. Well, the yearbook comes out, yay. Maybe the payoff is actually down the road a little bit when people have started to forget things about school. Bam, that's when a good
Right.
yearbook really, like,
Yeah.
priceless, that sort of thing.
We'll get back to more insights from our guest, Dr. Darrin Peppard, coming up in just a moment. Some great advice once again. Get ready to take more notes as Darrin shares a lot of great wisdom, especially about improving adult leadership in any school. Now, in this episode, we talk about videos in some cases on the jostensrenaissance.com website. And if you have never been there, there are a lot of terrific videos, 3 series in particular, that are absolutely worth checking out. One is called Courageous Conversations. Maybe a bit like our Renaissance Report podcast series here, just interviews with different people, adults and students and leaders and educators from across the country on tough subjects involving education today. It's a really terrific series and worth checking out. But there are two other video series especially aimed at students. High school, absolutely. Middle school, yes. In some cases, maybe even elementary school students. One, of course, is our famous Harbor video series with our friend Mike Smith. This has been such a tremendous series, 6 seasons worth, over 150 episodes on pretty much any topic you can think of in any school situation. Toxicity, absenteeism, mental health, anything. You can find some Harbor video episodes on the jostensrenaissance.com website that have something to do with that issue. Mike Smith and his many guests attack the issues head on. These are episodes that students are absolutely going to pay attention to. And every single episode has a question sheet that goes along with that teachers and educators can discuss with students after they watch the video. These are all brief videos, absolutely worth your time, either for a student leadership class. There are even some schools out there, they show Harbor episodes to the entire building. That's how good these are. These are what are called evergreen, not dated, good to be used anytime. Check out the Harbor video series on the jostensrenaissance.com website. And a relatively new one is called All In. This is done by our friend John Paul Gonzalez. That has been his mantra for over 10 years now. When he became, if you will, rather famous, when he did his all-in speech with the football team, the New York Giants, when they were struggling one particular season. They heard what John Paul had to say. They decided to go all in. And what do you know? Later that season, they went all the way and won the Super Bowl. Thanks in part to John Paul's speech. He is a former middle school educator, now a professional speaker, working with our Jostens Renaissance effort. And he has helped to put together the All In video series with students from across the country. What's unique about All In? Yes, they tackle tough subjects, but in the voices of students. In fact, students even did a lot of the video work on the All In series. This is a terrific series that we're already enjoying watching, and you can see the videos that are currently posted on the jostensrenaissance.com website. Now, if somehow you're not on there yet, if you are a Jostens partner school, contact your Jostens representative for their special Renaissance code. They will give it to you. And then you can log on to the jostensrenaissance.com website, register there, and once you're in, you have free reign on everything on the website. All those videos we mentioned, all the curriculum that's there, all the features that are there, everything. Now, if somehow you're not a Jostens Renaissance school or a Jostens partner school, that's okay. Contact your Jostens representative, ask them for that code. You also can register on the jostensrenaissance.com website, and then you will have free access to everything on the site for a 30-day period. While you're there, you might be thinking, hey, might be time to start working with Jostens for some things. We'd love that, of course, but certainly the jostensrenaissance.com materials are good for any school at any level, K through 12, and maybe even college. jostensrenaissance.com. Now let's get back to our conversation with Dr. Darrin Peppard here on the Renaissance Report.
All right, now you're a Renaissance Hall of Famer. All right, you've been around the block a million times. I'm assuming we probably either have teachers or administrators kind of listening in here. From your knowledge of our Jostens Renaissance ideas, materials, initiatives, whatever, there's administrators like, we have got to do something here to make things better. Can you
Right.
give us some quick examples of things that you know of that, hey, here's a strategy, hey, here's an idea, try this, anything you can kind of list there. Go right ahead.
Oh man, I'll tell you what, it just starts by going to jostensrenaissance.com. There are so many resources that are there. I mean, there's the idea exchange that is there. So if you're just curious, like, hey, I want to come up with a cool idea for a rally, go to the idea exchange. There might be somebody who's done something cool. Hey, I'm trying to figure out a way to recognize my cafeteria staff. Go to the idea exchange. There's going to be something in there that you can say, ooh, that works perfect, or oh, I can adapt that to help fit that. Maybe you're looking for something to boost student leadership on your campus. The leadership curriculum that's there on jostensrenaissance.com that I believe doesn't cost you anything to utilize, go check that out. It was built by school teachers and administrators from around the country, some of the absolute best and brightest people were a part of creating that leadership curriculum. Go check it out. It is super, super awesome. And then the last one I'll tell you, because there's so many great things in there, but man, if you're looking for something, and school administrators are always looking for something to help their students to open up, to have conversation, and to utilize your advisory period, homeroom period, tiger time, whatever you might be calling that time when you're designing time for connection, for support. Everybody's got one and they've all got a different name. But I'll tell you what, the stuff that Mike Smith put together, the Harbor, it is absolutely powerful, powerful stuff. You get a short little video with some people that kids are going to know, with some really great topics. And then you've got some great discussion questions that your teachers can utilize to help get that conversation going right there in the classroom. And there's a brand new resource, Scott. I don't know a lot about it other than I heard about it at the national or the global conference this summer, with John Paul Gonzalez doing some work with kids in schools to support kids in schools. There's just so many great resources right there on jostensrenaissance.com. I just don't think you can go wrong. And I think all you need is a login, and your Jostens rep can give you that at no cost. You get that login and you're set. And there's so many powerful tools on there.
That new series you're talking about is called All In, which our friend John Paul Gonzalez, that's kind of his mantra for the last 10 years. Former teacher, now he's a promotional speaker working with us, and we're thrilled to have him. I've seen John Paul in action up close and personal. He's phenomenal. Kids love him. And
he is.
It's interesting. The messages he's going to be sharing will feature material put together by kids about kids on very important topics, which is just awesome. I can't wait to see these.
Yeah.
This is going to be really, really good. Now, you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and if you're a Jostens customer, it's free. It costs you nothing.
Absolutely. Doesn't cost.
I mean,
Again,
it doesn't get any better than that.
You mentioned if you're listening there, contact your Jostens representative, ask them for their code. They'll give you their code, which is usually like six characters. And if somehow you don't work with Jostens, you could still ask your local representative for their code, and you'll have access for a month. You'll have access for 30 days to check out all the cool stuff on jostensrenaissance.com. So anybody can go check this out. Now, Darren, you mentioned earlier, we've had this formula for years, which is now the 6 R's. If you wouldn't mind, again, go over the 6 R's. How do they work together? What is that formula for success?
Yeah, you didn't tell me there was going to be a test, Scott. So here we go. So it begins. That's all right. Yeah. You would think a Hall of Famer could nail this piece. So it begins with respect. The first R is respect, and what respect really means in this context is, what do you care about at your school? What is it that you're really looking for at your school? Are you focusing on academic performance? Are you focusing on citizenship? Are you focusing on student behavior, positive student behavior? If so, that's what you respect. So it begins with that. Get clear about what you care about, right? Then the next 3 R's are respect, or rather are recognize, reward, reinforce. Right. So we want to do everything we can to really put the spotlight on those things that we respect. When we see kids, when we see adults doing the things that we're wanting to see happen, that's when we want to recognize it, we want to reward it, and we want to reinforce it. Okay. By no means is it bribery. It's nothing like that. It's just simply, how do we make sure that people know that's what we want to see, that we want to reinforce as much as possible? Maybe you're focused on your student attendance. My high school, that was one of the areas we really wanted to focus on. So we set a goal, and our goal wasn't perfect attendance, but our goal was, hey, if we can get to 92% average daily attendance, that was our first goal. I mean, ultimately we ended up even higher, but let's try to get here. So every student who was at 92% or higher On the attendance, in other words, meeting or exceeding our goal, we were going to recognize them, we were going to reward them, and we were going to reinforce that behavior. And we did that in a lot of different ways, whether that's, small acknowledgments. It could be, it could be gear, and swag. It could be, recognized at our quarterly Renaissance rallies. But that's what we wanted to do, right? So no matter what it is that you're focused on, find ways to recognize, reward, and reinforce that. Okay, so that gets us to 4 R's. The fifth R, which is the newest R that's been added, but has always been a part of it, and that's relationships. We talked about it earlier, Scott. We're in the people business, right?
Mhm.
And the whole thing about being in the people business is you got to pour into relationships, right? We hear it all the time across the country, and I'm sure you hear it in a lot of your schools. All means all. John Paul Gonzalez says all in. Are we really all in on all kids? Because if we are, that means we're making sure that every kid in our building has a significant relationship with at least one adult, that there's somebody who notices when they're gone, that there's somebody who's there to pick them up when they fall, and that there's somebody there to celebrate with them when they're making big strides, when they're achieving something, when they're hitting a goal. So often we end up with kids in our school who essentially are ghosts, right? They'll go through the whole day, never hear their name. They may not even speak with somebody in our school. It's not okay. If we say we're in for all kids, we need to be in for all kids, right? And that comes down to relationships. That's why when I talk about being a recovering high school principal, the thing I miss the most, all of it comes back to relationships. It's all about, spending time in the hallways with kids, spending time in classrooms with my teachers, spending time, in the athletic arenas with our coaches and our athletes, or in the band room with our band kids, or down in the theater with our drama students, whatever, right? It's all about relationships. So that takes us to the sixth R, and the sixth R is results, right? And you're going to get results no matter what. But if you pour into these 5 R's, the results you're going to get are the results you're hoping for. Back to that clear, compelling vision. This is where I see my school. That's the result that you're ultimately trying to get to. So those are your 6 R's right there for Jostens Renaissance.
Yeah, relationships, we only added, I don't know, a couple of years ago, I think. But when we added it, it's like, oh my gosh. Yes.
We've been advocating for it for a long time.
Yeah.
And it was really exciting when that finally took place.
All right, now let's talk about Road to Awesome, which is your project that you do. Now, for folks that aren't, we have a video version of this, and you've got a bookshelf behind you, and I can see Road to Awesome books right behind you there. What oh, he's gonna grab it. There we go. What is Road to Awesome? What is the purpose of what you've been doing in the different kind of travels you mentioned all over North America? Road to Awesome, what is that?
Yeah, so Road to Awesome is a lot of different things, but what it really is it's a philosophy of life. We're all going somewhere, we're all on a journey. Why wouldn't you want to go someplace awesome? And it really comes back to that moment in time, my first year as a school administrator, when we were trying to, solve these silly things like, what are we gonna do about hats and cell phones? We're spending time on just silly things. And somebody said, why does it always have to be about what they do wrong? Why can't it be about what they do right? And I had been traveling this one road where, in my role at the high school at the time, I was in charge of discipline and attendance for our entire student body. So 1,100 kids at the time. And, essentially I was the hammer and they were the nail. And that's what my role was. And that's what I was doing. And it was an easy road, right? It was cookie cutter discipline day after day after day after day. It was punishment to gain compliance. And by the way, that's a terrible leadership strategy. It absolutely doesn't work. Punishment to gain compliance doesn't work. That's why the 6 R's are so powerful, right? Because we're actually recognizing, rewarding, and reinforcing the things that we respect, instead of punishing the things we don't want to see, right? But in that moment, when I've got these two different pathways now in front of me, I'm gonna go on this road where I am gonna focus on the things that we're doing right. I'm gonna really bring that positive energy every single day. I'm gonna be the person who understands that when their feet hit the floor every morning, that they have a choice. a choice of how they're going to show up. Am I going to show up on behalf of kids and do great things, or am I going to show up and just be the hammer? That ultimately over time became the philosophy of our school. It became who we were. We were all traveling a road to awesome. We had a big hashtag road to awesome wall in our school. It became, the way that we kind of branded our school, if you will. Continue to fast forward, and I fell in love with supporting and coaching leaders. Right after, as I transitioned from assistant principal to principal, I struggled for a while, and my superintendent hired a leadership coach for me, and it changed me, completely changed me. It helped me to find that clarity, to be real purposeful with the work that I do. And once I had myself figured out, I was able to really pour into other leaders. And so now that's what I do. I support leaders with leadership coaching, with leadership professional development, and I support schools with that professional development around not only intentional leadership, but also intentional school culture and climate. And Road to Awesome is also the name of the company. My wife and I are self-employed. We run our company called Road to Awesome. Road to Awesome provides not only the leadership coaching and professional development, not only the speaking work that I do, but we also have a small publishing company. We do books by educators for educators under the flagship Road to Awesome. So it's 100% a philosophy, a way of life. It's about bringing the positive energy. And I'm not talking about that toxic positivity stuff. We're all going to have struggles. We're all going to run into things, right? But you know what? I'm an optimist, and that's who I have become. And so I am working like crazy to have others live that same road to awesome mentality. I mean, we're all on our own journey, right? We all have our own road to awesome. It isn't one destination. It's a destination that each of us can decide. So that's what it is.
Where can folks maybe get more information? You've written books, and
Yeah.
you do your travels and
Yeah.
speaking engagements.
Mhm.
Where can maybe people, if they want, they
Yeah.
can connect with you, get some more information?
100%. Yeah. You can go to roadtoawesome.net. That's our website. You'll find everything Road to Awesome there. Links to our podcast, links to our blog, links to all of the books that we published, both ones that I've written and that others have written. Ways to learn more about our speaking and our professional development opportunities. If you're on social media, Darren M. Peppard on literally every platform. So you can find me on, let's see, Twitter or X or whatever the kids are calling it these days, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, Alignable. I think I've hit them all. I'm pretty much everywhere on social media at Darren M. Peppard.
All right, I got to check you out on TikTok. That'll be interesting. All right,
Yeah.
I got to look that one up. All right,
There you
now
go.
we're almost done here, Darren, but all right, you're a former administrator. I've worked with many administrators. It seems like administrators always want proof. They want numbers, they want statistics, they want
Yeah.
trends, and so on. Either now or for your prior time when you were an administrator, you did different things at
Yeah.
your school, and what happened? I mean, do you have any kind of things you can tell
Yeah.
off the top of your head, like, here's the results
Yeah.
that this proves this
Oh, yeah.
absolutely works? Go ahead.
Yeah. I would tell you. So when we started our Jostens Renaissance journey, we were sitting at about 84% average daily attendance. We were sitting at a graduation rate of about 69%. And I did, for about 1,100 kids, I did over 2,200 discipline referrals my first year as an assistant principal. I'll tell you that within 2 years, we had average daily attendance running at about 92%, just a little bit over. It's like 92.7%. The discipline referrals dropped to under 500 a year within about 2 years. And I would tell you that my last 2 years as the principal of that school, our graduation rate, 81.7% and 84.2%. Not where we wanted to be, but a vast improvement from where we were at 69%. And again, I mean, the biggest piece is you've got to pour into the things that you want to see. If all you do is shine the spotlight on the negative things, those things just tend to repeat themselves, right? But people want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to be valued, and they want to be trusted. And so pouring in that time, being intentional about recognizing, rewarding, and reinforcing the things that you respect, man, it will take you such a long way. And I can't speak highly enough of what work we collectively did at that school, but I'll tell you, I see it at schools all over the country, schools that have really poured into their Renaissance programs and have had incredible results. And I'll also say this, I've seen schools where Renaissance programs stopped happening and the schools backslid because they stopped focusing on the things that they really wanted to see and just started going back to punishment to gain compliance. So it works, absolutely. It's super powerful. And not only that, I mean, so that's the data side of it. I'll tell you that we saw massive increases in our student participation in activities. We saw massive improvements in our student attendance at our events. You know, we went from a tiny little student section to parents complaining because there wasn't a place for them to sit at the football game because we had so many kids showing up at the football games, right? Or at the basketball games, right? Or not only that, then it's also it's building that philosophy around how we want to do that. And then all of a sudden you've got your football coach buying in and making, you know, or asking the football players, hey, let's all go to a swim meet. Let's go support the swim kids, right? We expect them to come to our stuff. Let's go to their stuff, right? Or you have, you know, wrestlers who go to a speech and debate meet, right? You know, that just let's go show each other that we're here to support each other. We're all in this together. The more you pour into that, the more you start to see other people have these incredibly creative ideas that allow others on your campus to feel seen, heard, valued, and trusted.
Final question, then we're done. And actually, I have seen this happen, unfortunately. Some schools where the adults get together and think, okay, we got to do some stuff here. Okay, we'll do this and we'll do this and we'll do that and so on. And it could be an administrator, but it's all adults. And the kids are like, okay, what's going on here? You know, can we get involved with this? From your experience, this is an opinion of mine. Kids have got to somehow be involved with this, running this, doing
100%.
things, making decisions, and so on. What is your thought on that?
Oh, yeah.
What do you think? And maybe how do you get kids involved?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's huge. And I would tell you at our school, when we started our Jocelyn's Renaissance journey, we just started by simply asking our staff, hey, give us the names of some kids who are leaders in your classrooms. And not just the kids who are student council leaders or team captains. I mean, that's great. We wanted them too. But there are a lot of leaders in our schools that don't necessarily have a title. And so we wanted those kids. And we had a couple hundred kids that we pulled together. We started having some conversations. And again, we started focusing with our attendance. And in particular, we noticed our third hour attendance was just dreadful. And as a group of adults, just like you said, we thought we had an idea. We thought we had it figured out. We knew why. And we sat down and we had the conversations with our kids. And what we discovered was we were completely wrong. What we thought the reason was versus what the kids said the reason was were two completely different things. So ultimately, we ended up putting a group of students together and we asked the kids, you know, if they wanted to be a part of it. We had a group of 9 kids at the beginning of our journey that we called our steering committee. And we made sure we had, you know, representation from each grade level. And those students met with us on a regular basis. When we were doing our academic pep rallies, they were the ones who led the rallies. You talk about, you know, kids having ideas versus adults. There were times we had ideas for a rally theme and the kids are like, no, that's terrible. Kids will hate that, right? Instead, let's do this. Right. You got to lean in and trust your kids. You know, one of it in my book, I talk about the 6 things that I felt were most important as a school leader. Number 3 on my list was empowering and embracing student voice. And this was a key part of that, was really listening to our students and giving our students the opportunity to lead the development of the culture on our campus. The school is for them after all. Why wouldn't we have them involved in it? And the more we had kids involved, like I said, year one, we had 9 kids. There were years that we had 40, 50, 60 kids who wanted to be a part of building the culture and the climate on our campus. And when you get that student leadership involved, when you get those kids from all walks of life, whether they're athletes on your campus, they're kids that are much more focused just on academics, maybe kids that are involved in band or drama or speech and debate or yearbook or whatever, right? Because we have kids on our campus who have all kinds of different likes and interests, and you need as many of those voices as possible, because every unique voice brings a unique perspective, and that's how you really get everybody involved, is having voices at the table that represent other groups within the school. That way everybody feels like, hey, you know what? I really am seen and heard and valued and trusted here on my campus, and I feel like I'm part of something special here.
Darren, I really appreciate your time today. I mean, I've picked up some fresh things, like I never thought about that, or I never realized that. And
Yeah.
again,
Well, I appreciate it.
roadtoawesome.net. Roadtoawesome.net
Yep.
is your website. If there are administrators, teachers out there, if you're looking for a dynamic speaker to come to your school someday, here he is. There he is, right there, with really
Yep,
great
I
stuff.
would love that. That'd be awesome.
Darren, I appreciate your
Yeah,
time again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
A big thank you to Dr. Darren Peppard for joining us in this episode. We hope you got some great ideas and inspiration here, and be sure to check out the rest of our Renaissance Report series for more insights on education today and how to improve school climate, culture, and morale so that everybody wins, students and adults. Thanks for listening. See you next time.